All right, in this week's Coach's Corner segment, we have a special guest today, Head Coach Brianna D'Angelo of Coker Acrobatics and Tumbling. Coach, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so just as a baseline for this, we kind of want you to just introduce yourself, give a little bit of a background about you and acrobatics and tumbling, how you got into it, what you did leading up to this, and then how you got here.
Yeah. So my background is in artistic gymnastics. I was a level 10 gymnast. The plan was to do college gymnastics. And I was actually already verbally committed to the University of Bridgeport for college gymnastics. And then I got an email from the coach at Glenville State. That's where I attended undergrad, at the time, and kind of telling me the opportunity, and what, it provided. And at first I was extremely skeptical. I was like, what is this? Is this a scam? I was super skeptical. And then my mom actually was the one that was like, you need to at least have a phone call and hear it out. And I had Googled it. At that point, it was still super new. Glenville was only the 12th school in the nation to add. So there wasn't much online. There was just a little bit, and it looked like kind of like at that point a little bit more similar to cheer. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I've been training my whole life to be a gymnast, and that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up, my parents actually forced me to go on a visit. I met with the coach, Amber King, who is a good friend of mine now. And she kind of sold it to me, and just her personality, and just the opportunity to do something new kind of intrigued me once I got to the school and got to go on a visit and everything. And then I was like, all right, if I don't like it after a year, I can go back home. And then we started, and it was kind of cool because it was an inaugural team. So everyone came in not knowing really what we were doing. So we started learning together, and yeah, I mean, we had a pretty first successful season, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then after I graduated, after 4 years, I was, Katie Nunley from Frostburg State hired me as her grad assistant. And then I helped start the program at Frostburg. And after that, that came here.
So I guess building off that, how did your experiences with starting a program at Frostburg State kind of help you as you became the head coach here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten a lot of different experiences at Glenville. I was on a first-year program as an athlete. I've also had 4 coaches in 4 years. There was a lot of turnover at Glenville, but, I mean, I still had a great experience. And then I learned a lot from Katie. She helped with as far as like recruiting goes, and we were kind of starting it together. But I had no idea really about how to recruit and all that. So I learned a lot from her at that aspect. And then I just kind of took both of those and implemented it here. I mean, I didn't start the program here. Brittany Durham, she was the coach that originally started the program. So I kind of built off her foundation, and then went from there. So
do you think it was easier, I guess, as an athlete coming in as the program was starting at Glenville State, and then as a GA as it started at Frostburg State? Did you find it easier helping build it from the ground up, or did you find it easier with a little bit of a foundation here at Coker?
Like at Frostburg, what do you mean?
The difference being, okay, so you were a first year athlete at Glenville State, first year
assistant
at Frostburg State. So what's the difference in starting a program from the ground up as in kind of inheriting a little bit of it here?
Yeah, it was totally different because, at Frostburg, we got to kind of pick our athletes coming in. And I mean, I love the girls here and the athletes that I've coached, but it was, I didn't really know what I was coming into. I didn't know what talent was here. And so it was definitely different. I had to, and I think one way I could relate with them is, again, I had 4 coaches in 4 years, so I knew what it was like having a new coach. So I tried to relate with them in that aspect. It was definitely different for them, and it was different for me. But I kind of told them, like, hey, we're in this together, and I need you guys to trust me. And It took a little bit of time. That first year, I felt like a chicken with my head cut off because, it is so different from an assistant coach to running a program. And then you have to learn everything about the school. And, I was at Frostburg for 2 years, so I knew everything, not everything, but I knew so much about that school. And then coming in, I had to learn how scholarships worked. I had to learn just everything. So it was overwhelming. I didn't have an assistant that first year. So, but I think, we managed through, and I couldn't have asked for a better first season as a head coach. So
yeah, and obviously coming into the program and everything like that, obviously your first year you were 5-2 coming into it. That was your first year, and then this year only having the one loss to Limestone so far this year, and it's been relatively one of the more successful newer programs in the country for that matter. So what is it like kind of just having that type of success, not only coming in but knowing that this has been a successful program from the start?
Yeah, it's been honestly more than I could ask for. I mean, we didn't have any. So my first year was, what was it, 2020, 2021. We didn't really have any expectations that year. We were like, all right, let's see how we compete. I mean, again, I had no idea. They had never competed before. So it was like learning how they do under pressure, kind of seeing, how they do in front of judges, all of that. So we didn't really have any major expectations. And then we got better throughout the season, and we qualified to nationals in that pyramid. The next year, a little bit more expectations, but again, it was still that building and that foundation. And then we ended up 5-2 that year. And then I feel like every year the expectations get a little higher, and they kind of match up to it. So it's like, okay, we're growing. So the expectations grow, and they kind of exceed. So
For sure. So I guess when bringing in athletes, because obviously something very important in the collegiate world is the art of recruiting your athletes. You kind of get to go in and pick out athletes that you want. Now, obviously, you have to do your best to go and get them. So what's kind of been your main recruiting philosophy when looking for athletes?
Yeah. I feel like for me, it's easy to recruit gymnasts because I was a gymnast, and a lot of them are still like, now it's easier because Acro is becoming it's growing. So a lot of people know of it. There's camps and clinics. There's now youth acrobatics and tumbling gyms and clubs that help with recruiting too. And there's showcases. Like, we didn't have that when I was getting recruited. So it's a lot easier now. But as far as like the gymnasts go, it's pretty, 'cause I can relate to them. And Alyssa Liu, my assistant, she was an all-star cheerleader, and she's really good with the cheer. I mean, I can recruit cheerleaders too, but it's nice having that background of both. She was a base, I was a flyer or top. I was a gymnast, she was a cheerleader, so kind of have that balance. But just explaining the opportunity, like, you're going to be treated as a college athlete. You're going to have the opportunity to compete. Whereas, it's hard to get a scholarship in gymnastics. It was hard when I was getting, recruited. So it's just another opportunity for them to showcase the skills that they've been working on their whole life, and just to use it in a different way. And for me, it's like, it's a new challenge. Gymnastics sometimes, like, at least for me, I plateaued. I wasn't probably going to get much better than where I was at. Whereas in acro, you could go from absolutely knowing nothing about the sport for 4 years, and then 4 years later being like an All-American or winning a national title. And it's like, you've only been doing this for 4 years. So, you have to learn everything coming in fresh. You don't get recruited knowing how to do acrobatics and tumbling. And I think that's the hardest part. But we try to present it as, it's exciting and it's new.
So I guess as a coach that brings in those athletes that sometimes, as you said, the sport is growing, so there's going to be more athletes that do know the sport coming in. But how is it? How do you deal with that as the head coach with those athletes coming in and not really knowing the sport their first year in?
I mean, if we see that you look strong and you have a willingness to learn, you're gonna be fine. I mean, and everyone, it clicks, for different people at any time. So like, some people could come in and get it immediately. Some people, it'll take longer, but we do a lot of, like, we don't come in and like, you're expected to like lift 200 pounds. Everything is foundational. So same with, you know, on the mat, you know, we come in and we do just basic hand grips and counterbalance drills, a lot of acros, counterbalance and core work, and just very basic drills so they get comfortable, because it is a hard sport. You have to be strong. You have to know how to have air awareness. So we do a lot of groundwork in the preseason to get them comfortable, you know, building the big tricks. So
For sure.
Yeah, so we talked with Caitlin. We had Caitlin on the show a month ago, so ago, but we talked with her about how they mesh as a team between coming from cheerleading and gymnastics. So I just wanted to get your take on it as a coach, because you're the one in charge of meshing all of that. How do you manage it?
I feel like it's not really like an issue as far as like some of my their cheer athletes are like best friends with some of the gymnasts. So I mean, it's definitely like, it's more of like a stigma, I feel like.
Yeah.
I definitely know, like, as a gymnast, it's like, oh, I don't want to be a cheerleader, but it's nothing against cheerleaders. I think, you know, you need both to be to do this sport. You need some that have that stunting background, and then you need some that have the gymnastics technique, and I think they understand that coming in. We try to be transparent about that, you know. Some of the gymnasts, you know, it's an individual sport, so some do take a little bit of time getting used to the team aspect, like I did. I know I definitely did. But we try to do a lot of, you know, team bonding activities and try to make them understand that it's, you know, it's not about you, it's about the team.
Yeah, so. Especially having your assistant coach also being a cheerleader also probably helps them too. So have two sides two sides of the fight, help mesh everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just talk a little bit about you mentioned earlier going to nationals back in 2022. I believe it was in Eugene at the University of Oregon. So just talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So at the time, the at-large qualifying was a little different. So now they take the average of each heat. Back then it was like if you scored a 10, you automatically get in, basically.
Okay.
So it was our last meet of the season, and we obviously had we didn't have any expectations. Like I said, we had just gotten back from, no, this was regular season. So I don't remember who we were competing against, but we had started that pyramid with going in. Madison McAfee was the mid-level, Hannah Helms was the top. And we were just like at practice trying it one time. We're like, all right, this looks good. Let's try competing it. And then we had scored couple like 9.8s, 9.9s, and then that very last meet we scored a 10, and that was a surreal moment. Like, that was the first 10 I've never scored a 10 as an athlete, so as a coach it was really cool to like experience that with them. And then I was like, you know, I think this means we get to go to nationals, but we weren't like 100% sure. So again, like, we weren't expecting that. So then we got word that we qualified and we got to travel as a team. That was such a fun experience, something I'll always remember. And then we got to compete against, you know, Baylor, Oregon, all these huge, you know, top ranked teams.
Yeah. I'm sure that was such a surreal experience because reading, so, you know, this past Thursday was the senior night, and going through the script that I was reading, it was like, I think 75-80% of those athletes all said that like their favorite experience from competing was going to Oregon and having that experience there. So I'm sure that as both an athlete and a coach, that was so surreal and awesome to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole trip and going on a plane, flying across the country, like, I don't know. It was fun. It was stressful, but it was fun.
Yeah, you feel official after that.
It was just, some of the girls have never even flown on a plane. So it was it was super special, and getting to all experience that together, and especially as, you know, first year competing, it was just so cool.
I remember them coming back, and they were like in awe, like that was so cool. Like they were so excited to go, and it was, to me, like, they were just happy just to like qualify in general. So it was just a huge milestone for them.
And it, like, I think that really got set up. Just a few, you know, we didn't take the whole team, but having just a core of them getting to see, you know, one compete at a stage like that was incredible. And then getting to see, you know, what our sport can
Yeah.
looks like at that level.
Yeah, they were like, wow. They're like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I think that motivated them the next year too. So yeah.
Yeah, Kaylin touched on that too about how like she saw Baylor, Oregon, and they're like, wow, like this is what we can be. This, you just got to work at it. So
for sure, yeah. And I feel like they're getting there. So
they definitely are, yeah.
And that's awesome to see with it being in preseason this year, top 15. You were ranked number 12, so it's you're inching closer and closer and closer to, because I know they take the top 8 teams, correct?
Yeah.
And then do they do top 8 from each individual event, or how does that?
So, if you qualify, yes, they'll take the top 8, and then at nationals they'll take if you make the top 8. How do they do it? They will. Like the people that qualified in top 8, the meets that they're competing at, like the semifinals and all that, they'll take the top score for them. But then at large, it's all, now they changed it, it's all average.
Okay.
So they take the average of each heat. So
How many at-large teams do they allow in?
just one per. Well, I mean, it's really hard to tie now. Back then it was easy to tie, but now it's really hard. So they'll take just one. Yeah.
Wow. So they take whatever the
of each heat.
Yeah. So whatever the highest.
Yep. Average.
I'm assuming besides the 8 teams that already. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That is.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to make it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I take it with the what a lot of people don't realize is that with this sport being obviously the way it is and everything like that, you're not just facing just Division II schools. You're facing Division I schools as well, and it's like I think it's like 56 teams, 60 some odd teams in total. What is it like kind of just facing like all levels? Because again, it's D1, D2, D3, and I believe just one NAIA school.
I think it's like I said, like it's cool having that opportunity to get to compete at with different some that are veteran programs, like Quinnipiac and Baylor, Oregon, Azusa, like. That's I know a couple teams in our conference got to compete at Azusa this year, and just having that experience, seeing what it's like to compete against veteran programs, and I think it's inspiring for them too, because it's like, oh wow, like this is what we can be. So I know like as an athlete I got to compete against Baylor my sophomore year. Baylor came to Glenville, and that was just, I mean, we knew we were gonna lose, so it was like nothing like. But it was just the experience of, wow, like watching their team routine in person, like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And honestly, I feel like it helped us do better too, because we're like, oh, we need to compete up to them. And I think anytime that I know, at least for my team and us, if we're competing against, a good program, even if we say don't really have a shot of winning, we always do better, like play up to them.
So how has it been? You said when you were being recruited out of high school that Glenville was one of the first 12 teams you said to have a program. So how has it been seeing it grow from that to what it is today, and then the continuing growth, because it's still such a new sport and still getting bigger and bigger? I mean, it's incredible. Like it's crazy. I mean, I've been out of college for like 5 years now, so just within the 5 years, like we've grown number of there's been a number of programs that have added, so it's exciting because it's just a growing sport, and I'm excited. We're emerging NCAA sport now, and we're trying to get to that NCAA status, which it's crazy. I tell the team, like, you don't realize how much you're making history when you're in it, and then when you are out of it now, it's like, wow, like we're all pioneers of the sport, and we've all had a hand in it and getting to where it is today. And it's like I said, it's hard to realize when you're in it, and it's also cool to see just a lot of coaches or athletes that I graduated with, or that were the same year as me. Now we're all friends and we're all coaching, so which is awesome to see as well. Yeah, that's awesome to see a lot of those a lot of those athletes that initially got into the sport, seeing them take their experiences and grow on that, become coaches,
Yeah.
and then share that love of this brand new sport at the
Yeah.
next level.
For sure. And I think it's like, of course, we're competitive, but we all want the same thing. We all want to see the sport, keep growing and become NCAA. And so we kind of have to wear NCATA caps. And, we're all helpful with you. Like, I have friends that are different other coaches, and, I'll call them up. They'll call me up. Like, we'll talk, we'll help each other out. That's how I got through my first year a lot, so it's just nice having that community as well, just to lean on whenever, you need help or times are tough.
For sure. And I love to see what, being at all of the meets this year. I got the pleasure of being at every single one of the home ones, and seeing not just the coaches, but the athletes supporting each other, not just on the sideline for their own team, but for a different school. So like a newer program like Francis Marion, when they were competing, I think it was you guys in Belmont Abbey were also there. So seeing both of the other teams for them when they were on the mat, and as they're growing, just supporting them and in their growth, it has been so cool to be able to see from an outside perspective, because you don't really see that very often in other sports where athletes are lifting it up like that. And so
sure.
I think that not just the coaches, but the athletes are also bought into helping the sport grow.
Yeah, and I think like it's hard. Acro's hard, and so going out there and like not, I remember our first year too. We had a lot of support, and it's hard going out there, and it's nerve-wracking, especially if you've never done it. So the more encouraging other teams can be, I think it helps. Those newer programs, and it's hard to put together.
For sure.
Just wanted to segue into the conference tournament. You got coming with a 2 seed. How are you guys getting ready to face Limestone again?
Yeah, so we don't know exactly. We have semifinals and then and then quarterfinals. So I don't know exactly who we'll be competing against, but we've gotten to this season. We've set up our strategy a little bit different, and the way our conference schedule was a little different. So last year, all of our, I feel like the schedule was like flip flop. So we had all of our more neck and neck meets. They were in the beginning of season this year. So it's been nice because we got through that, and so we got to kind of experiment a little bit with the other meets. So it's just to see what things score and what we can compete, what we're not going to compete at conference. So, so that's been nice, just getting to kind of see that, and we're just going to keep just a lot of reps and working on the details now. So, and kind of finalizing what we're going to go into semifinals with. So,
yeah, and so I guess segueing off the mat a little bit, we've talked a lot about the competition portion of it. So part of it here at Coker. In the fall, the school was number 1 in Division II for community service hours. So I guess just I wanted you to touch on a little bit of maybe what your favorite thing as a coach has been, that maybe you've seen your team really buy into, or whatever that you guys have done as part of that community service.
Let's see. So my team really likes the treats on the streets. Is that what it's called? It was for Halloween.
Okay.
And the community all downtown, they all go out and hand out candy to kids. They all like that. And then I know we've volunteered at the animal shelter, which that was fun. Just getting to play with the dogs.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure they all loved that. For sure.
Yeah. So we've done little things like that, but that's what they've enjoyed. So.
And then I guess also off the mat, part of being a student athlete is that there's a reason that the student is first. So how do you, I guess, as a head coach, not only do you have to worry about the competition portion of it, but you have to worry about managing your entire roster of athletes and their grades off the mat. So how does that come into, what are some things you guys do to make sure that those athletes are on track in the classroom?
So my assistant she kind of manages all of that. She kind of runs the study hall and everything, but we do study hall. So all of our freshmen is required for the year. So I think we do like 4 hours a week. We'll do it in first semester. We would have someone supervise. This semester, we unless their grades are like very bad, they'll come into our office. But for first semester, it would be supervised. This semester, they just will have a sign-in sheet at the library, and they'll have to sign in their hours. We kind of give them a little bit more leeway this semester because our grades last semester were much better. But if you anyone that drops below a 3.0 has to do study hall. So even if you're a junior, senior, sophomore, any of that, you have to maintain a 3.0.
Gotcha.
So
that standard is you set that pretty, which is good for
Yeah.
sure. So I guess one of my last questions would be, as yourself as a little bit of a younger head coach, do you find an issue dealing with your athletes being so young? Do they take to that well? What's the relationship like there?
Yeah, I feel like it was more, I wouldn't say of an issue, but it was definitely harder when I first got here. It was hard for me too because like I said, I came from an assistant to, and then having to like jump into that role of a head coach was hard for me to do because I had never, done that. And I, as an assistant, you're like, I don't want to say like the good guy, but like it's totally different. So having to step in, and my personality, I'm just like, I'm, easygoing. That's just my personality. So it was definitely hard for me at first to kind of step into that. Okay, no, like I'm the head coach. I have authority, and it was hard. But then I think year 2 and now I definitely have grown a lot and feel more confident. And
For sure.
And I think I always say too, like if you don't have to be here if you don't want to, So if you don't like the way we do things or like my coaching style or any of that, like you don't have to be here. So
for sure.
But
for
yeah,
sure.
we just, I think, and Alyssa and I were so different too, so it helps. But
I guess on the flip side of things, do you use being a little bit younger as more of a tool to relate closer to your athletes?
I think that's been the biggest thing. I think as far as recruiting goes and just the team, like it's only been 5 years since I've touched the mat, so I'm not that far out of it. But so we when they're hurting or when we're going through just the midst of season, it's like, guys, like we understand. We've been there. We've gone through all of it. I've gone through the ups and downs of the sport. So has Coach Lou. She's had coaches and multiple coaches and all of that. So it's like, we know what you're going through, and it'll be okay. But I think that helps for sure.
Yeah, being an athlete myself, we have Coach Ambrose is fairly younger coach, and I feel like having him not too far out of the game really helps when you're going through something or like the game changes. So I'm like Acro the same way. It's changing so much. So having someone that actually went through it not too long ago kind of helps out with all of that.
I think it does. Yeah, it's nice having, especially like 2 coaches that have gone through it, And it's like I said, with our background, Coach Lou and I, our backgrounds are so different. So, if it's something like a base or a top, like we can both relate to them because we've done it. So.
Yeah, well, that's just about all we have.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and good luck with the conference tournament.
Thank you so much.